Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 44th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Welcome, the gang. Our hosts today, Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and friend to everyone. And I'm Joe, architect, founder of Dragonchain. Quick update on the WBRT layer ownership tokens. That is the DAO distribution from last week's episode. Each host from last week will receive 222 lot, and every topic contributor will get 33 lot. We got through all the questions, right? These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. Very important. And there are two things you need to look at in the World Blockchain Roundtable DAO right now. The first of which is a discussion asking for April theme suggestions. So go leave a general theme for topics and questions for the month of April. The WBRT lot holders, the DAO itself will vote, and the top 4 will be themes for each week in April. There apparently are 4 weeks in April. And let's see here. We also have, I do believe, a governance issue up for rotation of this very intro, that we could have the hosts, as they are so willing, read through the intro instead of it always being me. Just something to play with. And I think that's everything. That's all the so go vote if you have lot in the round table. Do go vote, including all you guys. In particular, I know you love my voice and hearing me go through this every week. But anyway, so next week, current events. What's going on? What is going on in the world today? There's nothing going on. Nothing ever happens.
Right. Exactly.
Well, you know what's going on with me. I'm ramping up for this weekend. We're going to be accepting matter from Din Social to buy beer at a brewery, which is cool. So you use Din, you get rewards, and then now we're bridging that into the physical world so that we can basically let people. The idea is that the most active members of a particular community, that is our beta testing sort of like guinea pig community in Gainesville, the more involved and active you are, the less you pay at shows when you go out to see your friends and stuff. So basically the most supportive community members, as proven on chain, without collecting data or private info, parties for free. Pretty cool thing. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's Saturday. So wish me luck.
Well, when you think about it, right, like that is something that the world has always needed, because the people that give life to a thing, that really make it come to life, are oftentimes the folks who are out, giving and giving and giving and spending and spending and spending. And, the companies that do the best and the teams that have always done the best have found a way around the fact there's no built-in mechanism to reward them for it.
Right. It's a lot of work done for free. I learned that, took a crash course on that by, managing a band. And I found out how much work is done for free. And
oh, geez.
dude.
And yeah, your best fans are almost like unspoken band members.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Pretty cool
It's neat
solutions.
that's built into the world now.
Monetize your fan clubs, y'all.
Yep.
For sure.
And I will even say, back in the day when I used to play music professionally, one of the bigger issues that was always kind of weird to me and frustrating was a lot of the times, like you'd have a band come into town. We had once had an opening band I think it was when we played with Slayer, that the opening band yelled at me, "Hey, you," and they were like, "Are you the?" Well, we were the real opening band, right? They were touring with Slayer, and he said, what are you getting paid tonight? And I said, nothing, man. It's cool. We're here, happy to play, right? And he's like, no, $300. You're getting 300. I was like, oh, thanks. I was like, we really don't need any money. You guys are touring. We're okay not taking anything, right? And he's like, no, the promoter told me you're getting paid $300. Make sure you get paid 300, because he knew that we were playing for free. And he also knew that every single kid up there with a staff shirt on or security was doing it for the scene,
Right.
that they were, it's like, oh, and so all these volunteers happen, somebody's always manipulating that situation, and the touring bands don't get anything. It's really funny.
Well, one time, actually, Joe, I don't know if you remember this, but you were promoting a show in Lawrence, Kansas, and my brand new band that had just barely gotten started, that really sucked, wasn't going to get paid anything the night we played with you guys. We played the show you were organizing, and you insisted we get a little bit of cash. Actually,
Really?
I swear to God, this is
what
not
band
something
is
I
this?
imagined. We were called Silenus.
Wow.
It was spelled with a P.
How did I not know this? That's crazy.
Yeah, the memory just snapped into my head. I recognized that conversation and combine it with your face. I was like, I know that for a fact. It was that back alley the back room of the bowling alley.
Yes, they call it the back room.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's weird. It's wild how things, that's a small world, right? That kind of thing.
That is nuts. Yeah, we had they kind of gave us the keys to the kingdom there for a little while, because there was nowhere else. Like the outhouse had closed. Anyway,
It was a great place.
Local history, guys. It's like it's that place, because it was off I-70. Every band came through, so you would get to play with, big names, at least in the certain genres. It was awesome. So anyway, that's crazy. We'll have to talk about that. Okay.
Speaking of nothing happening.
Yes.
You, Dave and Joe, you jerks. Oh, there you go. Yeah, do it again. Still haven't got my Dragon merch yet. A World Blockchain Roundtable, no mug for me to sip on camera. No. But
really?
Dave, I did order your Are You Threatening Me, Matt, a flag. It is on its way. So I got that coming.
There it is.
Wow. Yeah. Well, again, I blame Putin, and the supply chain, COVID influence, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe we can look into that.
Sorry about that. That's my fault too, I'm sure.
There is one hit on. I guess it is current events. Y'all first on y'all's other conversation. Did y'all ever hear of a group called Gripton? From back in the day?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
You should look on Spotify. You should listen to them. They're good. But a couple of buddies of mine, that was their band back then. They were a very political kind of punk rock band. But they're in DC area. And man, if you listen to their stuff, it's weird because it's like, 15, 20 years old. But it's so perfect for today. And like corporate stuff and all that. It's odd.
Yeah. Weirdest one for me is always going back and listening to concept albums that tried to predict the future. Like my favorite one is Year Zero by Nine Inch Nails. Like if you go back and listen to the story they were trying to tell, it doesn't get all the things, but it gets many of the things in ways that are kind of surprising.
It's interesting, right? Like looking back at art. This is kind of a conversation on community and support and conveying like ideas and things that are important to us. But yeah, it's cool to go back and look at art from years ago, and some of it you thought was amazing and it's not, and some of it you thought you didn't understand, but you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, I think
Also,
that's
current events. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. I just
It
found
is.
out about that this morning. I completely wasn't even paying attention to the calendar, but my neighbor said something cute, and I was like, didn't understand.
I'm the only person wearing green in here.
Yeah, I think so. I was about to say, I think Greg wins the show.
You got to wear it as a hat.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
forgot that. I forgot it was the Ides of March too. We could have done a perfect theme for the Super Happy show, but nope, just missed it totally.
Too busy to even
Friend of
realize what
mine,
day
friend of
it
mine
is.
who's always up on, he's up on that and celebrities who die.
Hmm.
He messaged me like 12:01, like 5. One of them was that really creepy Warwick Davis as the leprechaun.
Hmm.
He was like, getting that at midnight. It was a little weird, but
Huh.
Yep.
yeah.
I had a friend who was I don't know. There was a story behind why he got into this, but I guess he and his mom would compete with who could email or text the other about a famous person's death first. And so he built an entire software system of finding the friend. And it was really hilarious because we would monitor this, and we actually learned about people that we would have never known. It's like, well, why is this guy famous? And like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
my friend is not that technical, but man, on Facebook it would be like, rip Abe Vigoda, just out of nowhere. Which I don't think he's going to die. I think he's going to live forever.
Probably.
Yeah.
Other interesting current events. I think that probably the thing that's jumping out at me the most is how fast things are escalating with what we're doing in this new sort of war format where everybody is a participant.
In some
and we
way.
are all sort of expected to chip in on the propaganda machine to a certain degree. But
I think I said something about that last week, that it's that post 9/11 feel.
Right.
Like if you're not 100% for it, you're 100% for evil.
Right. It has. It's amazing to see a phenomenon that I thought could not be revived uncrassly. I mean, it's still crass, but people don't think it is. Sort of this jingoism, this sort of blind patriotism that takes precedence over human suffering and all of this. And I think it's tragic, but I also think I think it's going to give us an opportunity to see who we really are as an ecosystem. As a group of people who started building something to protect the individuals of the world from undue exercises of power. And I think we're going to see a lot of people reveal their character in this over the course of this, because
I've been noticing, like, what you're talking about is sort of, it's more common to hear people voice concerns about matters that were previously were like, oh, that'll never happen, or it's not a big deal. And one of those is, freedom of speech, freedom to not get banned from something, or not, something related to that, but also like not being taken advantage of. In the past, there was a willingness to just serve up yourself for profit for somebody else, because it was convenient, right? It was convenient for me too. The first time I joined Facebook, I found it when I was deployed in the Navy. I saw somebody on the ship's library using the messenger to talk to home. And I was like, oh, I have to pay 50 cents a minute to do that and register for time on the phone. So they made something useful.
The Mars system, was that what you were using?
We were using, what were we using? It was AT&T freaking phone cards. We had to buy phone cards, and they had a special satellite we used or something like that. And then we used that network. And we had MRSat too, though. I think that's what we're talking about. Yeah, MRSat. But I guess what I was really trying to say is I've had to change the way that I communicate with people, because I'm such a nerd that people don't know what I'm talking about, and I have to. And I've been talking to people about, like, not what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it. And it resonates a lot more with people.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, and
that
I
includes Din too. Like reframing what the reasoning behind it is, and it's like, oh, I get it now.
Well, there's so many living examples of why this is important, right? Like I saw the single most destructive act of war I think I've ever seen occur the other day, executed by a private actor. Slack turned off the accounts of anybody connected to a Russian IP address, or if they could identify them, Russian nationals working outside of Russia. So all of this value, all this business value, anybody building in the space who happened to have a Slack channel who is actually working to try to stop what's going on here and is working against the idea that, like bully madmen with control over big militaries should have any kind of say over what the rest of humanity does in terms of pointing guns at each other. Like this is something that is crazy to me, that there's this company out there that has all of this historic business data that you build up with your team over time, and then they can shut it off as an act of war.
Well, I think it's kind of the next step in the blind corporate wokeism. That
Right.
It's just like, oh, what is it today? Oh, we'll put that, we'll put that rainbow here. We'll do this here, and
Flag,
we're all about
fist,
this, and now
Right.
they're like, this is what it is now. Okay,
Right.
if you're
They're
Russian,
built in, and it's suggested to you to use this flag.
It does.
Right.
It does harken back to Japanese internment camps in the United States. I mean, it's
Right.
it's like, and we've always said, oh, I can't believe that ever happened here, and it could never happen again. And it's not.
It's actively harmful to our
it's
society.
coming. I honestly would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, well, it's actively harmful, right? Like I put up something on my Twitter account the other day. It was literally like a picture of that stupid EverForward ship, because Evergreen keeps on giving gifts in terms of bad shipping container ship drivers. There's another one that is literally like it ran aground off of outside of Chesapeake Bay, and there's one of these stupid big green ships just blocking the way and looking like a big
I've been through
moron.
there twice on a ship through the Suez, where I kept getting stuck, and one of them was during a general strike. We were just floating around the med for a while, waiting for that. So
But I juxtapose that to the Slack thing, and when you think about the amount of destruction of value that occurs, which one's worse? Running a tanker or running a cargo ship like that aground, or killing all of the progress that a team is making? It's exponential.
And something to look at least the way I think of things, that at first when it started happening after the invasion, and the celebrities started tweeting their songs and weird stuff like that, I was kind of taken aback at how, I mean, I now think it was very, very much not organic, but just the flood of yay Ukraine, the Russians are evil, that came out on all the socials. And at first I was really worried, because no one was saying, wait a minute, I mean, not all, we're talking about the Russian people, various other things, right?
I know there are lots of Russian cypherpunks who hate what is happening.
Yeah, it's very odd. And yet now, a lot more people are starting to talk. But my assumption is, I mean, this is the typical divide and conquer stuff that, okay, we're going to make it out of, obviously Putin's bad, and obviously this is bad, and everything else. They get everybody on the same page. The celebrities are pushing everyone. We all follow the celebrities. And then they call for, and they have, a dude in his T-shirt asking Congress for a no-fly zone. You're thinking, well, wait a minute, that's talking about us actually shooting down Russian lanes.
Right.
If you really want a world war, and the thing is, it pulled really well. So
it's nuts.
Will it work? It's freaking nuts. It's like, is it worth a world war over? And why the hell
strategic
is
arsenal
Ukraine
still aimed at us?
Also, I think when it comes to that, it's very obvious what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all, we got to do everything, and this is terrible, and we're 100% with Ukraine. And then Zelensky's like, okay, you're gonna do this, and this is like real stuff, and we're like, what? You're here? No, go away, man. We're busy, we're busy putting up a facade. Don't ask for real shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, here, dude. We're doing something.
Well,
he's like, hey, we're here. We're having a war. It's like, shh, go away. The grown-ups are talking. It's so obvious.
Well,
like, hey,
and it's
you gonna stand
the
up?
thing.
And we're like, whoa. We want to talk about a lot of stuff, and we have an agenda. We really don't care about you or your people. So, shh.
You step back one like maybe jump one step up a little higher, and you have to wonder why everything is tied to this one country. Why is it that all these senators and all these powerful people in the U.S. have children that work for energy companies?
Yeah, everywhere.
Freaking it makes
not
no
just us,
sense.
it's a bunch of
had an advance warning on
The
this,
conversation about the billion that that Biden, his open bragging about. It's like, oh, we're gonna not give them their billion. The fact that Trump made a phone call and was impeached over a conversation talking about that very fact is odd. And now it's the center of what's going to be World War III. It's kind of crazy, right?
Right.
Maybe.
I mean, and now if you go on New York Post, the New York Times has apparently admitted that they made a mistake about reporting that the laptop was fake. Right?
Imagine that
they just parroted the deep state propaganda on that one.
You know what's interesting about that specifically, the laptop thing, is
It had all the Ukraine info on it.
that in itself is interesting. But I guess to me personally, that was one of my jumping off points into, okay, this shit is real, because that was the first time I'd ever been censored on Twitter, and I've said some crazy shit on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like this is like my therapy session sometimes.
Right.
But
I say that unicorns are going extinct because of the poachers and all of the harvesting of the
all of that
ivory.
I can talk about on Twitter, and it doesn't matter. So that's what I do. And so all I did was I saw this legitimate news report from the Post, right? And I was like, I wonder if this is bullshit or not. That was really all I was looking for. So I copied the URL so Twitter knew what I was sharing, right?
Yeah.
And I tweeted and I said, has anyone else seen this? What are your thoughts? And not only did it get censored, but it processed and it sent, and their system took it down, and as if I had never sent it.
Oh yeah,
It never it wasn't like this was misinformation. You see the tags. It was just
Post got banned for 2 weeks. The oldest publication still operating in our country.
Yeah, and they did this in direct messages, in private, peer-to-peer direct messages. They would either ban or censor that content. It wasn't even just a flag. It was like, oh no, you can't send this. You can't send this content. And they did similar things with NPCs. Reddit. If you remember when the Donald was shut down, they were theorizing for months and months and going back and forth with the admins on Reddit as to what do we have to do, checkbox everything to make sure we don't get taken down. And they were getting rid of I can't remember what they called them, but people who would come in and post stuff that should get them banned because it was someone from who wasn't a fan coming in and doing that.
They were brigading and raiding.
They basically erased all of that information forever, and so all of these private groups popped up, and people would. I was thrown into some of them, and they actively came in. Even it was maybe a day or two old private group. They'd realize, a lot of these people were over here, and wasn't even any real content going yet.
There's much weirder stuff than that.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about. It was really weird. Everything we've been going over has to do with something I want to bring up, which is a current event. It's just on a smaller and more personal scale for us and me in general. But if you look at the chat over here, Lisa Davis, that's Litecoin Lisa.
Hey,
it was after the 9/11 thing. Her and several other of crypto influencers who were at January 6th. Their private texts on their phones were monitored. She had certain people that were blocked, and she had nothing to do with it. She just was friends with people that the FBI visited, and those people were blocked. A bunch of pictures that she had taken that are personal, showed up on someone else's phone. I mean, a bunch of just weird, crazy stuff.
100%. Yeah.
but they were probably like, backed up in the cloud or something. So they were all accessed and accidentally sent someone. It was a lot of crazy stuff happened. But what I wanted to talk about is we're talking about toxic and all that. And you guys have mentioned this so much about how the Bitcoin maxis are they're terrible. And I had no idea how bad it was. So Lisa was asked to go speak at this Bitcoin Day event. And her name is Litecoin Lisa. So she posted about it. And a speaker at the event started threatening her life. And then someone else started threatening anyone, like, we'll put a gun to Litecoiners' heads. And are they going to die for their coin? I will. We're not the same. And then they were like, change your name. And just the amount of it was insane.
Sean, I'll be honest.
And she's like the sweetest, nicest person that I know. So she went to to the people that are doing the event. She's like, hey, this person's saying these really bad things and stuff, and it's pretty bad. And they were like, oh yeah, it's pretty bad. Oh gosh. So she thinks, okay, they're gonna handle this. And they're like, don't worry, he's a pussy. When he shows up, he'll probably just ignore you. And she was like, and then she got kind of mad. She's like, hey, asshole, what are you talking about? He's probably going to not do anything. He's a pussy. And then she's like, why are you so angry now? You were nice yesterday. She's like, yeah, because I thought you were going to handle this and not just tell me, to don't worry about it. He's actually a pussy.
Right. Yeah. Stow it because the toxicity is so ubiquitous that it's the status quo.
But I couldn't believe just a crypto meetup that they would just go insane like that, and they just hate filled, for anyone that's not it's Litecoin, for God's sake.
It's not just there either, it's I don't want to take like a bunch of time with this, but that's the reason that I didn't buy another ticket to Miami this year. I went last year to the Bitcoin thing, in Miami.
Oh, they're doing shitcoin again.
Yeah, not interested in going this one. I might go to the Monero Beach. I might go to the shitcoin meetup. I don't know.
You should go to shitcoin. I'm speaking at shitcoin.
Dude, I'm going to be there.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. My buddy's the one that started it.
Yeah, but, Sean, I met Anna at ETH Denver, and Rivet's actually going to be involved with shitcoin. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Cool. I was.
Where's that at?
Miami. It was okay. So the whole reason why Ken started it is because it was $5,000 to go to Bitcoin last year, and he's like,
that's dumb.
How many people are just regular people coming into the space? Oh, I want to go to a convention. I want to learn about Bitcoin. It was $5,000. Yeah, right. So he started shitcoin. He tried to make it free, and then it was kind of like donation. It was like a few bucks. But it was a huge success. But it was basically the punk rock. It's the same time.
That's
last
awesome.
year.
It's the anti-punk
coincides.
movement,
Yeah.
It was literally go to this.
I will say we would occasionally have maximalists come up whenever I would speak. That most of the time, normal people, whatever, they might disagree. It's all fine. But a couple of times, I was like followed out where this dude he wouldn't stop. He is like, well, why are you doing X? Why are you doing? It's like, dude, it's all written up, right?
Yeah, she showed you thing, dude. If you're gonna win, you're gonna win. Otherwise, get off the back.
The tweet said that we'll put a gun to your head, blah blah blah. I believe in freedom, and something we're not the same. I was like, how can you
shut up and do what I say? Freedom.
You threaten somebody to tell them to change their name, and all because you believe in freedom. It was so the mindset of today's craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not across the board. I don't want to do a blanket statement. Like
Agreed.
At the Bitcoin conference in Miami, there was somebody who said, if you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom or something like that. And if you're against freedom, it was some line.
I think it was something about if you don't wear yellow pants that you aren't you're against liberty.
But another speaker,
right, and they're doing exactly what every idiot. Every fucking idiot on the planet who's dividing the debate right now is doing, and they're pre-picking the definitions. Being anti-Bitcoin isn't just being anti-Bitcoin; it's allowing for the possibility that there are other uses for this that are valid.
Yes.
It's not, but that's the thing. I can understand someone saying if you're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom, blah blah. That's okay, fine. You want to be that's a hard line.
I just
But
love a
to
lot
say
of other tokens.
if you are pro Bitcoin and pro something else, then you're against. You know what I mean?
Bitcoin.
That's
right. The
That'd be
definition
more
is
honest way to say it, at
right.
least.
My only point there though was just to say that others, like right after this guy, somebody else came up as a speaker and said, no, that's bullshit. Like, so not everybody that's into Bitcoin is like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but
and I will say
my
that
point, because you guys said this a lot, all of you talked about it, because you were a lot more involved in the Bitcoin community, especially in the beginning than I was.
I definitely was.
And you know, talk about how it changed, but it blew my mind that someone like that community could be like that. That's the thing it's not everybody. Yeah, that's true. But the fact that it's coming, it's like when you find out a preacher is really a devil worshiper. I mean, it's like that kind of thing. It's like, whoa.
Well, and to bring it back to current events, I think this is key. Like, I think there is a percentage of the population that are just sort of petty authoritarians that can't just have a thing and have it for themselves and have it be free for others. They can't have a world where anybody has any other choice but their choice.
What was the quote recently, Joe?
In the crypto world, the weird thing is you tie what is usually kind of like a team mentality, right? You know, that I love this sports team, and you know there are even some pretty good skits on how people identify so much with a sports team because they wear the same color jersey that they really get into. People get really beside themselves if a team loses, whatever else. And what we've done with crypto is essentially the same thing, but adding money to the mix. So it makes a super cohesive tribal mentality. And you know, there's definitely good in that, but there's also bad. And John Deaton, who's, if you follow him with the all of the XRP and Ripple stuff that's going on with the SEC, super interesting, even though a lot of it is legally way over my head. There's a lot of stuff that I don't understand. You know, what is a writ of mandamus and all that? I don't know what any of this stuff actually is, but it's interesting watching the gameplay and how the SEC is, you know, basically changing their story on the fly as things move forward. And it's super interesting. Well, he tweeted yesterday, "This is how we unite," and he was basically talking about someone else saying, "Hey, I'm an XRP holder, watching what you're doing. This is good stuff for the industry." And you know, and I then tweeted, "Hey, probably the most important thing, because the divide and conquer is prevalent everywhere, and with this technology in particular, it's important. And the more they can divide us, the worse off everything's going to be, and the longer it's going to take for even if you're only interested in number go up. Number go up is going to require unity." And the funny thing is that you know, even the same thing. It was a light dig, but it was basically saying XRP is doing better than, you know, what Bitcoin supposedly solves all this stuff, but XRP really doesn't. I'm like, that it's just a weird thing. Even after you say unity, it's like, oh, but our project's better than all the rest of these, and you know, some of it's not bad, but
that's the baseline problem there with that one is it's not, though, right? You have to acknowledge where you are as an ecosystem too, technologically speaking. They maybe did have a legitimate roadmap to get to where they're going. I don't know. They don't talk about that part. You know, instead they're miffed that we haven't all gotten behind them, which understandably, right? Like the crypto community could have done better there, and we should be opposed to exercises of government power that are abusive, regardless of who the target is and regardless of what the circumstances are. If we're really going to be for our ideals, but
abusive government practices. I don't know. Have you guys seen what Lisa was saying? And based on what Sean was talking about, Lisa said in chat here about what happened. I mean, just it's the same thing Sean said, but it's just, you know, from the person.
They should use them for targets.
Yeah.
Well, specifically, they're doing it at a gun. The meetup is at like a gun show, big gun place. So they're talking about using the Litecoin people.
Well, specifically, I was talking about the part where she says, "My mother
can't more Bitcoiny than Litecoin." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's literally like it's step.
I will say I always would make fun of Litecoin for various reasons. I don't particularly like a couple of things, but it is brilliant. Not in some of the things they did, but in the fact that it's a different algorithm. And I think that was very much needed, at least even for me, to demonstrate the concept of here is a similar product with different goals and different different configuration. You know, you had a different block time. It had a different. You had the script algorithm to affect the actual mining and ASICs and everything. And if anything, it was something that made clear to me. Look, this entire space is a gigantic experiment in competition. That every chain is competing with each other, which is amazing, right? That's anyway, very cool.
Right,
so.
and they're not competing legitimately if they're
Script
suggesting
covers so many
violence.
different
Right? Like, it's
so many
bullshit.
different projects. When Litecoin was out, it was especially in the ASIC community, because I dabbled in that, and you were able to mine, like 20 different coins, whatever's the most profitable with a script miner. It wasn't like other ASIC miners where you're just one coin. You had so much more flexibility. But using the sports analogy, Joe, it's like you're talking about. We like the same team. Like I'm an Eagles fan, love Eagles, and there's diehard crazy football fans who are nuts. They're going to get tattoos. They paint their face. They spend a huge portion of their income. I mean, you could be like a poor, blue collar worker who literally spends like 25% of their income to buy season tickets for this team. But then you contrast that to a soccer team, and there are people who will kill someone of another team if they like.
If the hometown loses an important match, that city's getting fucking burned down.
Ashton Kutcher was talking about how his wife is Guatemalan, or it's a South American, she's from South America, and they were visiting, and they were he said, "Hey, let's go to a soccer game," and her father was like, "Okay, all right, we'll go to the soccer game this week." It was like all serious, and then he's like, "Hey, kids, we're gonna go to soccer game." He's like, "No children, no women, but we'll go to the soccer game." And he goes, and there's like it's like a sci-fi movie or prison. Like all the entranceways are just covered in fence on top, on the sides, and then they watch the game, and it's like they're all crazy. And then it ended, and they only let the other side of the stadium out. And he's like, "Oh, it's over. We're going to go." He's like, "No, the police hold us here for 20 minutes to let the team and the other fans leave the area. They need a 20-minute head start." And literally, the police surrounded. They locked all the gates, and they held all these people. He goes, "No, people, there'll be like riots, and these people try to kill those people because they're different fans. It's not even like a huge thing. It's just a common thing." That it just shows that the different levels of tribalism when it comes to sports, because that would never happen. I mean, at the Super Bowl, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the key to remember about all this stuff and why maximalism makes zero sense from the fucking lips of Satoshi himself is they selected the MIT license when they made it open source. Sorry, forks are gonna fucking happen. That's what the MIT license is for. He knew what he was talking about, presumably, because he got everything else perfect. He got that perfect too, if that's your argument. Like, I'm sorry, he intended for forks to happen.
Yeah, but he mentioned Namecoin, right? Namecoin was, in my opinion, brilliant, and I think still needed, but badly modeled, right? I think the economics were kind of but squatting was happening and stuff. But the fact that theoretically you could plug that in and not need the key management of the way that SSL is handled in the browser is marked that only certain people can sign that top level. It would be amazing if we had that today. But
and the sports team's mentality doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. All it does is make you have solidarity with your group at the expense of people in other groups. Yeah. And the team either wins or loses in the marketplace. And that's that. Like, Bitcoin's still here. You guys are winning. Ethereum's still here. Ethereum's still winning. everybody who is still here because they have a successful thing is winning because people like it and use it. The end, you know?
Yeah.
We got to extend that, and also remember, and to bring it full circle back to the news, right? Violence Coin currently has a monopoly on the world. We've had Violence Coin in every flavor, in every fork, in every nation state since the Treaty of Westphalia, and they are not divided. And they are pretty certain that we're a threat.
And what a shitcoin, right? You got one node, you got
Yeah.
unlimited supply.
It might even be better to call it, by the way, slave coin, because
coin.
that might be a little at a
coin.
higher level.
Maybe like smelter coin, because they literally have to smelt some of these things. It's like
that's proof of work,
ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So theme of the week this week is Layer 2, Zero Knowledge, Roll-Up Solutions, nominated by Eternal Mickey. So anything around that before we get started, and we can go right to questions?
Yeah, I want to say one person requested that we at some point hit on the difference between ZK rollups and optimistic rollups.
Okay.
So I wanted to put that out there. I saw it in chat a little bit ago.
One is a lot more positive.
One of them's really optimistic about the truth of things and whether it wants to trust it.
Half full. Okay. So I guess we'll go straight to it, right? Eternal Mickey also, see, this is great. The first question so he wanted this question in enough to nominate the topic and then put the question in. See, that's brilliant. Okay. Can you talk about the scalability trilemma, and was having a layer 2 solution always in the plan? Decentralization, security, and scalability. Was it always in the plan?
Trilemma.
Not it. Somebody else goes first.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's people like this iron triangle concept, right? This is an old IT trope that has been used in different contexts, like basically since project planning methodologies were identified. There's this idea that you can either have things done on time, you can have things done really, really well on spec, or you can narrow the scope or increase the cost, right? Like that's the old original one. Like you can change the scope, you can change the price, or you can change the quality. Those are your three choices. You cannot have all three because the scope cannot expand without driving up the cost, and the
quality.
The quality cannot drop without keeping the price where it is, or rather, the quality cannot stay the same without increasing the price if you increase the scope. That whole thing, like you're just going to have to trade one for the other. And this concept has been extended here, right? If you have a blockchain like Bitcoin, right, where it's perfectly decentralized if everybody runs their own node, you've got a situation where you've got good security and you've got good decentralization, but that system itself, because it's peer-to-peer and it's actually doing all the work necessary to prove proof of work properly, is not going to scale well, right? Because it adds a lot more complexity. You reduce that complexity, you make some security compromises, or you make some decentralization compromises by doing something silly like jacking the block size up so that it can only run on mega servers. These are the choices that you make, and these are the trade-offs you make. And layer 2 solutions were sort of the idea that came about to answer that conundrum in the absence of someone being able to figure out exactly what Vitalik was talking about when he said hyperquadratic scaling, which was like a whole nother, like the shards within shards solution is something we don't probably want to get into too much here, but it sounded science fiction, and it probably was, and it may still be for a while.
I'll say that's actually a really good way to look at it, because I hadn't thought about it. Looking at it from that traditional 3 points angle, that you can't have everything in the world. And I know when we started, and I would actually say I'll be bold and say that Dragonchain was probably the first layer 2 solution out there. We had it even before we were released in 2014. That essentially it is although I wouldn't look at it, I tend to look at things in a different way, I guess. But the fact that our level 1 is what the Ethereum crowd would call a level 2, or our layer 2, and so that was the whole point of, and I'm a software guy, right? So that is the
Mhm.
whole point in creating what we did, was that, look, here's what blockchain can provide you. You can use it for the proof element. That's a big thing that we point to in Dragonchain. And yet, if you want something usable and scalable, you can't be dogmatic about it. You can't say, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I have this type of data, but I can't expose it to the world, or I can't. It's like, well, you have to, or you have to use these zero knowledge proofs now. That, and we'll get into some of that later, I think, on the security side, that essentially both the security and the scalability have to be flexible, and they have to be transparent, that a user or a company using the platform needs to know. They need to have the ability to at once choose what fits best in their business case, and be able to make it transparent to the user. This is what we're doing. That yes, this piece is on a somewhat centralized server. We can control that. We can decentralize it to some level that makes sense. But what matters in this business case is that proof, and the fact that if you would go a few years ago to Ethereum, even as far back as that Reddit, if anybody remembers the Reddit competition, that they called they were ridiculous.
The publicity event where they pre-decided the winners and called it a competition.
Yeah, and we came in and we basically said, hey, look, they're not going to choose us, right? It's not a big deal, but we wanted to say, here's what we would do, right? We wouldn't just do that little thing you're talking about that also by itself probably won't scale. We would do the entire thing. It's like every vote, every post, put it on chain. And it was really odd, because it's like, oh, that's not decentralized, right? And like, well,
that's what they were, but they weren't understanding, right? The layer 2 concept yet, which you guys had sort of articulated without calling it layer 2,
right?
Which is this notion that, okay, we don't want to compromise on security decentralization. What the hell do we do if we need more feature? Like, what if we need more throughput? What if we need more capability? Well, okay, let's go with this basic idea that a blockchain can take some arbitrary data in a transaction, and let's stuff that arbitrary data into the arbitrary data field in this transaction after it's done processing on another system. Right. If that other system is also a blockchain, and that other system happens to do something like create a sub blockchain that runs a sort of state channel, then rolls itself up and smashes itself back down into a transaction identifier, and that transaction identifier is what gets committed back to the original chain, you've solved the problem to a certain degree. You at least outsourced the problem so that you can maintain the security and the decentralization of the first layer.
And so I think the answer to Eternal Nikki's question is that depending on the context, that I don't think the Ethereum crowd, who I don't know who named layer 2, but my assumption is that I don't think that they ever had it always as an intent or in the plan. In fact, I know they didn't.
They definitely did not. Right.
And it was a forced compromise, essentially, to say, well, shit, this won't scale. And when I say scale, I don't even mean technically. I think there's an economic scalability question that you have to think about on what the fees do.
Right.
But if you look at it from the higher level context, I do think that it was always, at least in my opinion, that's why we built what we built. I think it was always obvious that it was going to be necessary. So.
Well, and you look at what they've done with their naming conventions around the way things are moving forward, right? It's no longer Ethereum 2.0. I mean, the merge was successful the other day, by the way, on testnet. That's pretty huge, right? Like, they're actually kind of meeting their deadlines, which is amazing when you think about the complexity that goes into that process. But like, they have now a settlement layer and an execution layer concept, as opposed to Ethereum 1 and Ethereum 2, where the settlement layer is still the proof of work layer, and then the proof of stake layer is the execution layer. Maybe I have that backwards, but bottom line is they plan to treat layer 2s now as what they're calling execution environments.
Right.
So it's not even L2 anymore. Now it's just part of an ecosystem concept that says we are ultimately a security and decentralization layer on top of, or that you can build your your execution environments for your custom use case chains on top of it.
Yep. Come to Dragonchain. You can do it for Binance and Polygon and any other too, right? So
right.
Or Rivet, right? You guys do a lot of similar things there too. So
we're going to be supporting all the chains, right? Like anybody who can describe in open source software a node infrastructure concept that we can make sense of is going to go on Rivet eventually.
Yeah. Okay. And my screen has frozen up, so if you guys see anything different to me, I'm hoping I'll just read. Maybe you guys, if one of you guys want to read the questions, I'll just stick here until my browser totally fails me.
Okay, so Josh O asks, if a portion of the data is stored off-chain, does that create a security issue, and how would that be mitigated? It's a good question.
Maybe, probably not, but it depends on what the security issue is. If you need that piece of data referenced later, the security issue might be a lawyer asking you to prove something. I don't know.
Right.
I could say, and he might be talking about, it is a security question, depending on what the type of data, but a lot of times it's a data quality question. That is, just because something is on chain that came from off chain, like say from an Oracle or something, how do I know that data is sound, is valid? And we've always said that this is more of a, how do I say this, rule of thumb type thing, where the more data you can get on chain with that proof, so you have to make your platform, Dragonchain, extremely scalable so that people will be willing to put every substantive user event or other event in your system on chain, because and this is essentially a big deal, because a lot of the scalability
you've
answers
talked about this a lot in the past.
Yeah, because a lot of the scalability answers will say, oh, you do all this stuff you do on that layer 2 and you put the result on chain, and that's BS, because that means all this other stuff can't be proven by time or by, because we would always tell customers that, look, if you have small events, I mean, even things that are little menial things, all together in summation, you can say, oh, these 1,000 events resulted in this one thing happening on the system. That becomes valid because you have thousands of events placed in time with proof all the way to Bitcoin and Ethereum. That means that I can say there's no way that you would fake those thousands of events contemporaneously in order to show this bigger level event that in the future might mean something, right? To mean value or price or legal or something else. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think I would add that there's a situation here that you can sort of do a quick analysis on to figure out whether or not there's a security risk, right? One is the data that we're talking about something ancillary to the point of the whole trust equation with the transaction, right? Does it matter that you store a QR code referencing the block hash of the transaction in an off-chain database so that people can quickly query it if they're looking to grab it from an index or something like that? And if that's the only place that information goes after so long outside of an archive node, right? And you don't run an archive node, can you trust that you are getting valid data that you can't verify off the archive from the same source? Like, maybe there's an issue there, but you can ask yourself, is this linkable to something else that I can query that I can trust? If that question is if the answer to that question is yes, then you can reconstruct it, right? So you might rely on it, and if you don't fully want to trust it, or you want to have some trust processes in place, you can come back and audit it later and just connect up those off-chain things to the on-chain reference points and make sure they still make sense. Now, if you have something that's trust relevant that does not connect up, then you may actually have a problem, right? That it may actually implicate security, because people will maybe convenience reference it. Data corruption issues happen all the time, even unmaliciously, right? A database can have wrong entries in it. That's just how the world works. or someone can maliciously manipulate it. If you got your system constructed in a way where there's some mission critical piece of thing you have to trust, and blockchains are supposed to take that place, and you don't build in an audit process, you're setting yourself up for a bruising. But yeah, that's I would say that's probably sort of the sum total of that question mark, right? Like you need to look at the specific case and decide, do I need to trust this? And if I do, does it link to something that is immutable?
Yep. And there are, by the way, economic ways to even aid in that proof. Like we've designed systems in the past that used bounties in a way that can say, hey, I'm going to put these bits of data on chain, and I'm going to apply a bounty, which is within the smart contracts. Anybody who can challenge my bounty and get consensus that I'm lying can take my bounty, be rewarded with. And the longer that bounty lives, the more likely this information is true, right? As long as you have a good ecosystem. So
Optimistic doesn't have that, do they, Joe? Optimistic rollups don't have that, do they?
I don't think they applied that at all. I mean, I think I don't know enough about optimistic rollups, right? Yeah. But it is, and I'll take one thing I guess I can say that I don't think it's in any of the questions here. It might be security related. Between ZK rollups and optimistic rollups and my preferred designs, that I don't trust ZK rollups, and it's an odd thing. Maybe a little bit. Maybe I'm being dogmatic there. I don't hate them, as like I think projects using them are super interesting. I mean, the concept itself of having, by the way, we'll get into what they are and how they work in a minute, but there are so many unknowns that it's a cryptographic algorithm. There could be a hole. There could be something that's broken when you apply, some different attack vector that we won't know until it happens. And guess what? I hope that you don't have anything important there then. Right. And that's the issue.
That can also be true of display control chips we all use to see every screen on the face of the planet.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then, I mean, optimistic, I think they will only provide the info that is supposed to be usable or readable in that bit of data. I take the structural approach where you can essentially air gap info. So I could hold information offline with proof that this is not changed. So you may never be able to see my information until we sign a contract, and now I can expose it to you, and you can see everything, or at least see everything I want you to see, with proof that this data is contemporaneous with 3 years ago, and whoever signed the data and everything else. You can now prove it even though you weren't there back then. Mm-hmm. And I don't have to put it on a public network with ZK Snark or anything else.
Right.
So
yeah, and I wanted to say real quick, since we talked about optimistic, the way I understand, and I'm probably wrong about this, but the way I understand it works, or maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but there are transactions that will take place in layer 2, and the system will assume that they are valid and correct unless a node sees it and says, no, it's not, right? So where ZK Rollups is attempting to provide some cryptographic proof of things before it includes it into the block, I guess, optimistic Rollup says, well, unless someone disputes it, it's valid. So, I mean, what I don't like about that is, I don't know how it works. That's why I was asking you if there was any incentivized programs like that in optimistic, because it would seem like they need that. So there's a reason for people to actively seek out falsified or bad transactions.
Right. Well, and the dispute mechanism and what it rewards, and making sure that it's a sufficient market incentive to drive somebody actively doing that all the time to everything, regardless of, like if someone's not going to build automation for that scales to the whole network, if the market value gets high enough, then it's not a good security system.
It should be a mining method. It should be an optimistic mining.
Right. I mean, and you can argue that if you structure it the right way, the economic actors involved will take care of it, right? And I don't think that's any worse of an argument than anything anybody else is making. But
I don't think it's worse. I think it's different, right? Because you're basically trusting. You're either trusting math, or you're trusting game theory, or you're trusting proof.
Right. And I mean, and again, we're back in that iron triangle trade-off system again, right? Would you like to have some scalability? Okay. Would you like to sacrifice security or decentralization? Right.
We used to use when I was in the Navy. I was a tech rep for like cruise missiles and stuff. We used to use good, fast, and cheap. Pick two.
Yeah, that's the one.
I do have a feeling, by the way, in crypto, there's a little bit too much. It's an odd thing for an engineer, but there's a little bit too much, in my opinion, of rule by either the marketing team or by the legal team. And I've seen, both. I think the legal side, it's to the detriment usually of the project, and to the marketing side, it's the detriment of the industry. That
let's not call it legal. Let's call it compliance.
Well, also, as the dumb guy here, when it's just the developers, nobody ever hears about it, and the project doesn't lift off. So it is all three. Because I've been on projects like that where they're everything's so good, but they're just like everything is just about the development, and then also things tend to be so complicated.
Well, can I say about that? I mean, the important point that I at least that I'm trying to make is that some things, like say this ZK rollup thing itself, I think is more marketing than anything, because I don't think it actually solves a problem in a way that fits their dogmatism on perfection of decentralization and security. So that's whatever.
It's a standpoint one can take fairly, right? And really, I think the point that I was trying to make is kind of double back to Bitcoin maximalism kind of mindsets, or sort of Ethereum purism, if you want to call it that, because they tend to support multiple tokens, but they're still kind of ETH maxis or Bitcoin maxis in an ETH clothing or framing, right?
For example, that's a contest. Yeah,
there is an element of every ecosystem that will not sacrifice security or decentralization because they are worried primarily about old world state power being used to dismantle the system, right? That's ultimately what stopped every other private currency from competing in the modern era that was ever created. It's a fair concern, right? So they don't want to sacrifice that. But those exist, given that those exist, if people create things that do compromise on some of those things, are they still targets for that same power? Does everything have to be perfect security and scalability, or do we just need a few examples of it so that it's futile to try? And I think that's more likely the case. So a lot of these solutions, I think, come up with some really great answers to problems of privacy, for example. Like if you're going to build in a system that is like Bitcoin or like ETH, but is private by default, like truly anonymous, then you're going to need some kind of zero knowledge proof system. That's it. That is the bottom line. It is going to add some trade-offs, either in scalability or in decentralization.
I won't name the project because I don't want to show it, because I don't know if I trust it or not. But there is a project using that's doing like private smart contracts, kind of the way that you're talking about. Unfortunately, they chose to do like this massive pre-mine when they launched. So I'm kind of like, man, I would love to get into that, but then that's kind of a sticking point for me, But they're doing what is it called? Like DAGs, DAG. Is that something you're familiar with? Acyclic diagrams or something? I don't know. Where they're able to leapfrog around things somehow, and they're building up a whole smart contract ecosystem, and it's a privacy Ethereum attempt, right? So we'll see what happens.
I like the name that they've come up with, because I think the DAGs thing is a fun reference back to the what was that movie? Was it Conspiracy Theorist or Conspiracy Theory?
I love that.
I like DAGs. Like, I don't know.
It's a good one.
All right, next question. Who who wants to read it? I want to make sure it is the next question because I don't know if I have
yeah.
the latest
Let me pull
update.
that over here. I was looking up what DAG stood for. I'll just forget about it then. Where were we? We were on the ones with that one. So yeah, Foost should be next, right?
I think so.
Simple question, just for new folks tuning in. How does ZK rollups even work? I added the word even in there, but how do they work?
It's a great question. Do you want to take a crack at it, Joe? Or
well, I mean, yeah, if you take zero knowledge proof, and I will probably have a let's see here, the roll-up side. I might be a little bit looser, but zero knowledge proof is essentially where you can provide, let's say, a package of data where someone can verify whether a given statement is true without actually seeing the underlying data. So that's essentially throwing it into an algorithm that we both, in open source, we can both see that the algorithm is what it is, and you can provide data that proves a point without exposing, let's say, your salary or your location or something else.
Right.
And all I know is, okay, do you meet these criteria that you're in, like say in the U.S.
Right.
and you have a certain, your salary is within a certain range that theoretically you don't have to show me your salary or your actual address, but this proof that uses ZK Snark or one of the other protocols can essentially do that. And it's an amazing advancement and really cool.
Right.
But there's some risk. And then the roll-up side is essentially using that facility, that tool, to take a whole bunch of transactions or a whole bunch of transaction data and putting it into a smaller packet that can go across one Ethereum transaction, because Ethereum can't handle all these transactions.
Right. The idea is similar to with the roll-up. I would compare it to like a No Man's Sky universe where it's like it's got a unique identifier that is run through a set of algorithms that do things like see the type of planets that are going to be in there and color the sky and choose what animals are going to be there and remember the names that the planets were assigned. All that stuff can be rolled into a much more compressed piece of data.
Like
and
when you add, when you go to a system and navigate to it, you're looking at the roll up, and then you kind of unroll it when you go into it to And
then I would add for the zero knowledge proofs that it's really mostly about the idea that there's this special case of cryptographic algorithm where if you go ahead and run it through the algorithm and get the output, you can validate the output against some set of predefined criteria, right? So you can say, did the thing that we just run through this cryptographic algorithm meet the criteria that equals a valid input? And if the answer is yes, okay, we passed. That's a zero knowledge proof. If the output does not match, then it doesn't.
Yeah, and
it's similar to like verifying checksums almost.
A lot of it is like, to me anyway, the way I look at it is like you're deriving or you're inferring proof, and there's such a small infinitesimal like chance that that's wrong that you can make a decision to choose it, and like it's just I don't understand it enough in depth. You know what I mean? But it really is like thinking about what you're trying to prove. Do you need to prove everything that we're proving, or do you only need to prove that, let's say my account balance is more than 100 tokens? Do you need that proof as a check for admission somewhere, like just to see what kind of people are getting in? If that's the case, well, you can probably prove that without revealing exactly how much you've got, that kind of thing.
Right. What if you can hand a random string to the guy at the cashier when checking out the liquor store that he can run through a system it's called 21 checker, and if it's a valid input, this person is over 21 will pop up on his screen, but all you handed him was a random string of gibberish. As far as a human being is concerned.
There is a really good, if you search for ZK Snark Cave, there's a really good, I guess, a logic-based explanation for how it works and kind of what you can do with it, where one person goes into a cave and the way they come out there's some interesting stuff on it, but that's probably
I would also say that anything on the Zcash YouTube channel is a really great place to check for information like this, full and fair disclosure, I did kind of get Zcash pilled over the course of the last week because of some really clever tweets that I saw, and I was like, I have to check this out now, and I was like, this is kind of neat.
That's great. I'm gonna have to send you my Zcash, my anti-Zcash pill, and see what you think about it.
Fair enough.
It's all interesting stuff. I mean, that's like the beauty, in my opinion, the beauty of that is here are different algorithms. Here's Zcash. Here's Monero. Here are a couple of. I mean, it's super interesting because they have different takes on stuff, and there are pros and cons. And the other thing, I will say, the roll-up situation is what Dragonchain's been doing since 2014, and I actually would never advise a customer to use zero knowledge in their data because you don't gain much from it in most business cases. That it's better to hold it off with the proof. Anyway,
right. If you want, unless you want to not know and never know, zero knowledge proofs are not good for you.
Could be
the
good
goal
for
is to be able to say
VPNs,
provably that I don't know. Then
logs.
use one of those, because then when you get audited, you can say, I use zero knowledge on this. You literally can't get anything. I can't get anything, and there's not enough compute power in the universe for me to get anything for you. Sorry. You know, like,
yeah.
That's useful, but
that's good. That's
but
good.
only in one case.
Yeah.
I am wearing green just for the chat.
Ah, very good. Okay.
Ah.
We have to hope. Is that like at the schoolyard? No, really, my socks. Look.
Yeah, yeah, it is. My water bottle is green.
I went to Catholic school, so we knew every saint every day. So
I did for eighth grade. Yeah, no, seventh grade.
Very good. Very good. We go next question. Should we? And I'm still frozen here, but I'm
Okay,
so with y'all.
So Bit by the Coin asks, what measures could be implemented to better secure a layer 2 bridge? It's a great question.
That is a good question, because I've had problems recently with like bridging to. I had some issues with Polygon whenever OpenSea was integrating them and stuff like that, and it's scary because like there are issues where you don't know. We're in between two layers, and it's like, where's my value? That kind of thing. It's a good question.
Yeah, I would say that this is going to be a tough one because true bridging is probably an inherently insecure notion. Like having a pure automation step between two chains that does not involve an application that a human being is interacting with in a container that's secured. Like that's going to be dangerous. Like no matter what is going to be dangerous, because if, for example, there are any chain reorgs on the first chain that you're coming from, there's no way to know that that's going to happen on the second chain, and you can end up with a situation where you've got orphaned assets that you control if a reorg happens after it settles on chain number 2, and it's just an unavoidable problem. So what you're going to have to do is have application middleware where you yourself are the bridge, and the security is going to come from making sure that application is well enough designed that you as a human being don't become the weakest link in your own security.
Yeah. And that's where the dogmatism can hurt a system, because if you look at it from the context of the smart contract, let's say on Ethereum, it can't trust anything from the outside, yet it has to sometimes use data from the outside, whether it's pricing data is probably the most understandable reason for a decentralized exchange or something, if that even matters. But I don't know, it's a strange thing. But if you look at it from, like, if you were a business and you have a layer 2 that you're using with Ethereum, if your context is literally, I have all of this data, which I can trust at a certain level because it's my own data and it's already proven on chain or something else with inside of my system, that my scope is the Ethereum contract and my own other system or other blockchain smart contract, which could be on any other blockchain. That if you look at it from that scope, then the bridge from both sides is an unprovable data coming in or going out. But if you look at it, if you look both of them together, then you essentially can tie, and there's not anything really yet that kind of does that, tying together of multiple chains to say, okay, here is your total proof, not just, here's the block explorer from this chain and here's the block explorer from that chain. And we hope that, and the other side is what I talked about before, and essentially it's behavior, but it is when you, let's say I have an NFT, and we fast forward 50 years, right? This NFT is now worth $10 million. When it was first minted, it was 0.05 ETH or something very small, right? Let's say someone else right-clicked on it and created a separate NFT with the same freaking picture, and they're now competing in 50 years to sell this when we know that the original was worth that. The interesting thing about it is, if you have a scalable blockchain, that it would be preferable for the artist. Let's say it's not just like a punk or something, but let's say that the artist has created multiple layers of this piece of art, that if they could have put the snapshots of every new change to the art in its development on chain contemporaneously, way before, it's far more valuable 50 years in the future, because the inspector can look at it and see, well, holy shit, this one has all of the development steps to get to this piece of art. And it is that behavior which essentially improves the data quality or the security of the data coming in. And it's the same thing across chains. So the more you can get on chain as it's happening, and the more those separate events are, how do I say, they contribute to the whole of whatever that outcome is. Meaning that the great thing about it is that in order to break this, in order to attack this system, you would have to organize, you would either have to know in advance, hey, I'm going to put this together to trick somebody 3 years in the future, knowing that some outcome is going to be important, but you're going to still have to do all that work, and you're going to have to do it at that time, is much less likely than someone trying to come in and say, oh, here, you got a green checkbox on this date. I'm just going to copy that and say, oh, I got a green checkbox too. And it's more about the data quality and the fact that you need the scalability to provide that breadth of data, so somebody looking at it can say, oh, they're not lying. They wouldn't have 3 years ago have done all that crap unless this really was what happened. So,
that gives me a novel idea, Joe. Like, what could NFTs do to help resolve this? Because when you think about an NFT getting generated at a certain moment in time, what are you doing? You're getting sort of like a unique, almost tag. Like, one of the neatest ways I've ever heard an NFT described is it's like that moment that a counterfeit product maker commits the crime that actually makes counterfeiting a designer product illegal, affixing a really, really good forgery of the brand tag. And that's the thing that you can't really forge with an NFT. You can't really forge that block record. You can copy and paste a lot of stuff. You might even be able to mint an NFT that looks very similar, but you can't forge one exactly like the original minting.
Right.
That would make an interesting redemption receipt, I think.
Yeah.
If you were to not only on chain one, right, buy some tokens that represent value on chain two, but then spend those by burning them into an NFT that is actually a redemption receipt on the other chain, that might make sense. And that might actually be enough complexity to avoid any meaningful, realistic reorg issue possibility, right? Like, as long as that process takes long enough and has a little bit of friction to it, you wouldn't be able to, on a chain that was sufficiently secure with sufficient hashing power, sufficient validators, really run into an issue where it gets reorged out and you've got orphan assets.
Yep, that's a good point.
So,
yeah, it's all about a process, and it's all about having the ability to scale, to have far more events than a lot of people might expect on chain that you really just need to put. And I don't mean everything, because there's some events that maybe logging events, for example. But there are some cases where you would want.
Right. Well, I mean, the ultimate scaling solution is Moore's law and similar time-driven optimizations to the underlying tech. Right. We need faster computer chips. We need faster storage. We need cheaper computer chips. We need cheaper storage. That is ultimately still the key to advancement here.
That's just going to take time. Cooler running storage. Since you mentioned it,
3D computing.
I just melted 2 SSDs over here.
So
you can see it.
we have 9 minutes left. Do you want to go one more question? Do you want to do
one more?
What do you guys want to do?
Probably the last.
I'm around. Yeah, I'm here for it.
Is Angel Breaker next?
Real world use cases of layer 2 ZK rollups. That would be Angel Breaker, yes. Topic, real-world use cases for layer 2 ZK rollups.
How fast can you guys answer?
How fast can I do it? Well, I was just thinking, while you guys were talking a minute ago, I was thinking, one of the ways to look at Dragonchain is like, what if you took Ethereum and just bolted it on as a layer 2 for Bitcoin? And that's kind of like, you can use it as that if you want. I'm not sure if that applies to this question, but it's something I wanted to field as a way of framing it. The real world use cases, though, I think are having anything that needs to have stuff that isn't public but also prove it, right? But also like scaling up slow, expensive chains. Those are the two that immediately I can think of. Scaling them up relatively securely, as well.
To me, I would say that it's probably really useful for things that you want to get heavy duty with in terms of on-chain transactions, but you don't want to keep a massive record of it. Like, let's say you want to play a game and that game involves doing something abhorrent, like Grand Theft Auto. Like if you're a politician later, you probably don't want a public record of how many times you successfully teabagged 50 cops in a tank, right? Like that's not something you want to see online.
Or got your money.
But at the same time, you want to make sure you get your NFT reward for that. So a zero knowledge rollup would be really great for that, because it would be difficult to reconstruct what really happened in your game session, but it would be recorded and it would be cheap. So you wouldn't be running into a situation where gamers are pissed because NFTs cost $500. So
I have 2 to offer. The first would be in our proposed model to collect crypto taxes and to provide transparency into how the government spends them. It could be used for black projects that some could make the case that there might be a national security reason to do that. You could use that and say, oh yes, they are using this much, and we can't tell you which projects, but here you go.
Anonymous DAOs. That's another good
anonymous DAOs. There you go. That would be good. And then probably the better real world use case is marketing. You'll get a huge push from certain dogmatist in the Ethereum world if you do that instead of other things. Anyway,
a fair point.
Next one, or any others?
I think it's a kind of going on with what Greg and Dave were talking about, just things that are not that important. When you really, in certain cases, you really just want the end result, and how you got there is not that important. So it's important to have all that on there. Or if there's things that you want to have, like you said, the proof to get that NFT, but you don't want to have, all the information of how many times you teabag someone to get it.
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
Yep. Proof of ownership probably is the best one, I would say. So okay.
Yep. Self-sovereign ID is probably the really big one if you really want to know, like the super serious answer.
It's also most dangerous. It's the one I would say I would not recommend people use it for that.
Yeah, it's probably a bad idea to build that.
In anything with encryption that's going to break at some point in the future, you don't put stuff on there that it's the same thing as don't do anything that you wouldn't want on the front page of the local paper tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Don't put anything on chain, encrypted or otherwise, that you don't want exposed at some point in the future.
Right.
Anyway.
Or at least within your risk tolerance, right?
Yes. Okay. Features here. Question: can layer 2 zero knowledge rollup solutions help with scaling and lowering overall costs for users? And if so, how so?
Yeah, basically by doing it off chain, that's what your a lot of the focus is for these projects is
Yeah.
you have the chain that is expensive and too slow for your needs and too expensive for your particular needs. So then you can do all that stuff on a secondary chain that may or may not be as secure, but maybe it's secure for what you're specifically doing, right? You don't need more security than that for what your use case is. And then you can cheaply and quickly transact all over the place on the side, and then just have one transaction that rolls it up and says, okay, all these transactions happened in this base layer block, and you start doing more on the side, and then you checkpoint those into a block later. That kind of thing.
I would say that's accurate with one. I'll take one little quibble, and that would be that the lowering of cost happens in the near term, and that you're still ultimately going to have to pay the overall cost if the system is secure, right? Because ultimately that's going to commit back to a blockchain that's going to have expensive fucking gas.
Yes,
If you want to validate it, so you lower the near term cost for the user, but ultimately in the end they're going to have to pay something big if they want to actually extract the value at the settlement layer.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody, actually, this is about Lightning Network, the conversation was, but it applies. And I was just thinking about, the long-term implications of a lot of these models, where if you take Bitcoin, for example, and you have a halving event every so often to where, eventually the block reward goes to zero. And so the incentive for miners to secure the network theoretically will then come from transaction fees, right? So then with the Lightning Network, if it is successful, and by the time um, the the block reward ran out for Bitcoin, and everyone's on Lightning Network now, so it's cheap and it's fast. You would probably, I would guess, see an explosion of high fees on Bitcoin itself, because now you have businesses running Lightning networks and channels and stuff with customers. Everybody's interacting and transacting in a channel, in a Lightning channel, and then that channel has to close out and settle with the base layer maybe every day or something. But now it's like a bigger transaction, a bigger deal. There's maybe a bank behind it, and that's who's doing it. So they'll throw a big transaction fee in there. But it's assumed that that's how it'll work. So it's interesting whenever you see like, well, stuff like that, where the layer two solution right now is helping a lot, but it's interesting to see how it will, like the current design will play out with what we know is coming in the future already, what's already written, and how that'll shift transaction fees, and if fees will get higher then. And now, ruin the whole point of it in the first place, didn't it? If fees go up. I don't know.
Yep. Now, the ultimate goal, I think, too, and I think this is something you learn after you've been in the space for a while, like new folks coming in are a lot more worried about fees because they have a mountain to climb at first. But once you start realizing how the network actually rewards you instead of paying paying the network securers that are the third-party bankers, right? Like today we live in a situation where the bankers get rich while we get by, and we all have bank accounts as a consolation prize product benefit that we all need, right? But we're not getting rich from the monetary system. All of that, what they call seigniorage, is going to them, and all of the advantages accrue to the top, to the people who secure the network, by holding the power to send the men with guns, right? Or to call the insurance company, one way or the other. These folks are not in charge of decentralized networks, and you will start realizing those rewards the longer you get into it. So the longer you play, the less the fees matter.
Cool. So the last question, I don't know if that was intended. Sean's not here anymore, is he?
I'm going to say,
I was going to say that might have been for his Ashton Kutcher tweets.
That is a great fucking post. I like this. I love this question. My answer is no, unless you want to breakfast pizza, because hash is a breakfast food.
So funny. Yeah. All right. All right.
So Sean might be dipping in for the last moment here. All right. Welcome back.
What are you talking about? I've been here the whole time. You guys keep freezing up. And then it's horrifying, actually, because you'll say something and then you'll go like robotic and you're like, and then my computer shuts down.
So that's down.
Pretty weird.
Well, you're welcome for special effects.
Yeah.
Man. All right. That's it then. So let's go here. I'm going to get into the end. Thanks for everybody. What's going on this week? Updates for what people should be watching this week?
We've got a lot of shows over on Den Social. We've got 4 a week, I always say it, and we have a governance call coming up later. And I was going to say, if you want to support local artists, I'm collecting a team of them. And if you use anywhere in the world, if you just use the Den Social app and you start earning for free some matter on there, that supports the platform and these people that I'm convincing to let me play with crypto and pay for their events in crypto and all this stuff. So pretty cool, real world applications, real world uses, some of the stuff we were talking about.
Dave, can I send you an artist? There's a guy, there's a
send me
good
one.
friend of mine who would totally be a candidate for this.
I would love to do that. Yeah. And right now I'm focusing it locally because I live here, but I could absolutely manage an event if I had someone on the on the ground there. I could set one up remotely just as easily, probably, as long as I found someone who knows how to run it.
Yeah, I picked up one of his pieces on one of the NFT art marketplaces.
Like that kind of
James-
artist.
Yeah, James Mendenhall, man, he would totally want to get involved.
Yeah, send that my way, because that's like a lot easier. I'm doing music shows, so those are a little bit more involved.
Okay.
But yeah,
My
absolutely.
buddy that's running shitcoin, he's really plugged in with a lot of artists, and he's
Yeah, man, I should have signed up for that, man. I should have went to shitcoin, huh? I should have went
still
to that.
can. It's
Yeah,
just-
there you can go still.
Yeah, they still taking like people that want a table? I'll go talk about
yeah,
that.
and they're
Yeah.
too-
Oh, they are. They're actually
Sponsors.
still actively
Nice.
soliciting sponsors.
Just go fill it. Go to I'll tell you where to go.
I'll look into that. Yeah, well, I'll catch up with you later. I hadn't thought of that, but maybe I just decided to on air. So that's what's going on with Den. We'll see.
We're gonna do live World Blockchain Roundtable special show from.
I didn't know y'all were going to be down
from
there either.
shitcoin.
That's another reason for me to go, is so I can chat you guys up.
That'd be
We
awesome.
should do. We should seriously do a live stream from the event for the roundtable. I think that'd be
Cool.
fun.
Yeah, let's talk about it offline. That
We'll
sounds
throw it in
fun.
governance.
Okay.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
shitcoinconf, conf.com.
You know how I found out about it last year is literally somebody texted me a spreadsheet that was the shitcoin conference.
Yeah, it was
It reminds me
1,000% organic last year. He literally set it up like in a couple weeks because we were going to go to Bitcoin, and he was like $5 or $7 grand. It's like,
Yeah.
this isn't for people.
Wait, and then they turned him down, right? They said you can't. We
Corporation.
don't want you here because you're not pure enough or whatever.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, it
Okay.
reminds me so much.
Great.
Just real fast. I gotta throw this in here. It reminds me so much of the anti-punk scene. If you're a fan of Regina Spektor and that whole crowd, they did this sort of anti-punk, anti-folk scene in New York for a while. That was like, you're not invited to the events with the cool kids. They were like, screw you, we'll make our own venue. And that's what shitcoin reminds me so much of. So it's gonna be exciting.
Well, cool.
Lisa's asking about can she use the app for the Happy Hour Roadshow?
Oh,
Yeah, Lisa, you should actually get with Dave. Lisa tours the country and really pushes adoption, does like classes about just like the basic stuff. But that would really,
I would love that.
really talk
Lisa,
about that social and bring, people to the decentralized social media.
I'm totally down. Lisa, if you want to email me, Dave at Den Social, and we'll talk about it.
We should have her on the show.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's fun.
Okay.
for it.
Who else is left on updates?
So we got tomorrow, Rice TVX, Crypto Rewind, like every Friday. Should be on my channel too. We're learning how to stream it on my channel as well as being on Rice TVX. Our guest of honor is Greg. That is going to be at 10 a.m. Central, 11. No, that's this show.
Shit's gonna get crazy, man. We're gonna break the internet.
It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6
Fix the freaking
Central.
internet.
Yeah,
Nice.
We'll discuss all the news of the week.
Yep. We're gonna see how many times we can say certain buzzwords until the NSA shuts us off.
No.
How long does it take?
Amazing.
How long does
Lisa's
it take for
paranoid
someone to
about
bust
that.
the door
I
down?
want to let you know before we go, he will say things in code to where you don't even know what he's talking about. He's like, look, when we get the monkey off our back with the plug-in to our face and the thing that rhymes with snazzy, it's just like, I'm like, what are you talking about? His channel has gotten banned twice in the past month.
And I thought
Oh
I
my
was
God.
paranoid.
Yeah. He got banned by YouTube for impersonating himself. The insanity. So I don't know.
Awesome.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
All right, Greg, did you give updates?
I have one quick little update. Plugeth is out in the world. We have a plugin now that does parity trace in Geth. So you can literally dispense with your old parity implementation and run a Geth fork that is light touch that just implements Go plugins and use a Go plugin to get parity trace. So you don't have to run parity anymore if you don't wish, but you still don't have to sacrifice Covent if you're still using it for some reason.
Nice. All right, and for Dragonchain, we have a lot going on. Just watch the shows. We did a big AMA last week. There's a lot of drama on Telegram. Don't go to Telegram. Stay off Telegram. Stay off Reddit. We do have, I guess probably the biggest thing to announce would be that the Telegram channels at some point in the very near future will be converting to announcement only in order to get all of the content on chain, on DEN, and to use the reputation systems that are present to avoid some of the drama that you would otherwise experience. So check that out. Watch for it. Pretty good stuff. And go vote on the DAO, right? In the World Blockchain Roundtable DAO. Please get as many votes in as you can. I think I've already voted on that one, and I'm hopeful to see the topics. Go make some. I don't know how many have been made already, but go make some contributions there, and you will be rewarded. And I think that's it. The more you share the episode, though, the more views it gets, the more lot you and the hosts will receive. So make sure you share it and subscribe and everything else. So thanks a bunch. See you next week.
Bye, y'all.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now there are many. Because soon there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?